Welcome in to another Canada post-game show. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. The show is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Everybody watching along on the Daily Face-Off YouTube, welcome. Another win for Canada. The goal was to blow out France. That goal was accomplished. A 10-2 final, 9 different goal scorers for the Canadians, including one multi-goal scorer, their first of the tournament in Milan Celebrini. A 10-2 final, like I said, and the story at the end kind of doesn't become the blowout victory, which should lock up the top seed in the tournament heading into the medal round for Canada. But we'll discuss that a little bit more, and we won't know the answer definitively until the end of the USA-Germany game later on today, whatever time zone you're in, later on this afternoon, I suppose. But a welcome into everybody in the YouTube chat. I see a couple of comments and a couple of questions, including one from Naveed who said, interesting to see the fight situation. Anyone know what the official rules are around this? And yeah, it's a 10-2 win for Canada. And I do think the main headline here is the fight at the end with Tom Wilson. Who else but Tom Wilson? And to join me for that discussion and more is my good friend Jeff Marek from the sheet here on Daily Face-Off. And Jeff, 10 goals for Canada, 9 different goal scorers, but yet everyone wants to talk about the one fighting major.
Okay, so just so we're all on the same page about this one, yeah, it's I know everybody in Canada is thinking, okay, so that's it. What's going to happen with Tom Wilson? Does this mean that he's suspended for a game or the remainder of the tournament? A fight in a game carries with it a game misconduct. It doesn't automatically carry a one-game misconduct along with it. So we will stay tuned to find out if there is any more discipline that'll get meted out here. But it doesn't, Tyler, and for everybody watching and listening right now, it does not necessarily mean that he is going to get rung up for another game. So sleep a little bit easier knowing that Connor McDavid and Milan Celebrini are still going to have their winger, it looks like, for the next game.
Yeah, and
how's it going, bud? How'd you enjoy that? How'd you enjoy that game?
I mean, it was everything you kind of expected, I suppose. A blowout win. And Jeff, we'll talk about goal differential, but again, Canada, France, you're expecting them to win by some margin. It's just a matter of when they'll kind of take their foot off the gas. And again, considering the goal differential situation coming in, there was incentive for Canada to keep that pedal down for the entire hockey game.
Plus 17. Canada's at plus 17. So over the United States, we'll face off against Germany here shortly. I think it's pretty safe to say that Canada's going to finish first in the group here. So assuage your fears about USA taking that spot, and Canada maybe having to face off against Sweden for their next game. Look, this one was... Okay, so the thing about goal differential, I've talked about this before. I'm of a couple of minds. One, I do understand the sportsmanship of the game and running up the score, et cetera, when goal differential becomes a factor in determining who's going to go and play next and who they're going to play. To me, all bets are off. I've always lamented the fact that there is this code in the NHL right now where you don't want to run up the score, you don't want to show up the other team, but I think that's the only thing that's keeping Daryl Sittler's 10-point record alive, because when any player ever gets close to Daryl Sittler's record, remember Tage Thompson had 5 points against Columbus a couple of years ago, and we all thought, wow, this is amazing, the record is going to topple Tage, and then all of a sudden his minutes just went down, and he was off power play 1, and all of we thought, well, you know what, if it wasn't going to be then, when is it going to be? So I just wish that there was some sort of device in the NHL where goal differential meant a lot more to something, so we could have an incentive for players to actually run up the score. But nonetheless, this was a tilted rink, and it was one of those games where you're not going to really learn much about Team Canada. Maybe you're going to learn something about Jordan Binnington off that one slap shot by Sacha Trier in the third period, which Binnington probably wants to have. But I've always maintained that games like this are tough for goalies. Games where you don't see any action whatsoever, you barely get any shots, it's really hard for goaltenders to keep that focus and be a great goaltender when you're not getting tested and you're not getting warmed up to the puck. But one thing that does stand out now, too, and I was texting back and forth with a few people about this during the game, and this is not going to be a shot at Connor Bedard. It's not meant to that. He's an excellent player. But the conversation about who's better has to be over. The conversation, if there even was a conversation this year about Connor Bedard and Milan Celebrini, that conversation is done. Milan Celebrini is... I don't know. I'm sort of running out of superlatives to describe Macklin Celebrini. And again, like I know it's France, but another signature performance. And as Joey Kenward points out on Twitter, the first time a Canadian has scored in the NHL era of the Olympics at the Olympics. Corey Perry, Sidney Crosby, and we're left wondering, where was this guy in 1998? Of course, he wasn't alive.
No, and like not even close to being alive either, which is crazy. Like this kid's 19, and when you watch him play from the wide broadcast angle, you kind of forget that he's 19 years old, and then the camera zooms in on him, and you quickly remember that he's 19 years old. Like he looks like a child out there compared to some of those guys. But tonight, and I mean, yeah, you talk Harrison, like great player, all that stuff. Yes. I don't think Connor Bedard would have been capable of going out for any of these games and being Canada's best player. And I think today, whatever you want to call it, there is certainly a case and an argument to be made that Macklin Celebrini, up to 4 goals on the tournament now, by the way, the first Canadian to have a multi-goal performance in these Olympics, he was their best player tonight. I think he was more effective than Connor McDavid, and that is saying something considering it was another 3-point game for Connor McDavid, but Celebrini was just everywhere. He's an absolute demon on the forecheck. His stick is so good. Yeah. He finds those quiet areas, like with the puck, without the puck. He's just so noticeable.
We kind of saw something like this in 2010, Tyler, with Drew Doughty. Drew Doughty was 20 years old, remember? And I was like, well, in the NHL era, because there have been players that are younger, but not in the NHL era, that have played with Team Canada. But in the NHL, starting in 1998, in 2010, we all went, wow, Hockey Canada is going with 20-year-old Drew Doughty. And then by the end of the tournament, he was one of maybe their best defensemen. In the entire tournament, he was fantastic, and that was kind of a big sort of coming out party for Drew Doughty. For anyone that hadn't watched him in junior with the Gulf Storm or watched Los Angeles Kings games, like that became the moment where, wow, Drew Doughty has arrived, and everybody knows about him now. I know not a lot of people in the East stay up late to watch San Jose games, and shame on you if you don't, because you're missing a treat every single night. But Macklin Celebrini is no longer going to be a secret, if he was ever a secret this season. But for anybody who, casual hockey fans who are just tuning into Team Canada and wondering who the Celebrini guy is, by the end of this tournament, everybody should know just how great Macklin Celebrini is. And I kind of wondered too. He plays with the San Jose Sharks. Like some of the stats are just mind blowing for this 19-year-old who plays with like the enthusiasm of a 19-year-old. And as I have a team with like the Mark Stones and the Sidney Crosbys and Nathan McKinnons and like grizzled veterans, sometimes you just need that jolt that a young kid can bring along with you. One of the things that I'm thinking about through this tournament, watching Macklin Celebrini, and thinking what this means for people in the East. I always wonder what would have happened if the Pittsburgh Penguins didn't win that lottery and the Anaheim Ducks did. Like, how long would it take for Sidney Crosby to get on the map, knowing that most of the audience in hockey, casual or hardcore, is going to be going to bed before Sidney Crosby actually gets his skates tied up? But nonetheless, I don't know that, and I see the poll going up right now. Has Celebrini been Canada's best player? I'm still deferring to Connor McDavid on that one, or Sidney Crosby, Cale Makar, but man, Celebrini's right in there with the conversation and is flat out a lot of fun. Tyler, remind me, and we shouldn't do it now because it's not the biggest story, but I'm just texting with one of Pierre Crénon's former coaches, and getting some stories about him. So before we finish the show today, remind me to share some of the texts that I'm getting from his former coach and some of his former players, because he did play a couple of years in North America. But anyhow, make sure you get me there by the time the show's over.
I was going to say, you rarely surprise me, but it's such a Jeff Marek thing. Oh, I'm texting with some of Pierre Crénon's former deal. Of course you are, Jeff. You're the only one in the hockey world who could be. There's
a couple stories that are really funny that I think you and I think the audience will like too. Anyhow, we'll get there. Okay, so what do we got next?
Well, I was going to play a little game for you, story or no story, because we're going to have roughly 48 hours until Canada's next game. And again, knowing how this country handles its hockey and handles these best-on-best tournaments, we're going to need to talk about something. We're going to create conversations out of something, even though Canada has blown out their opponent in basically every game they played. Goaltending, you touched on it, Jordan Binnington. People in the comments, people on Twitter saying, "Ooh, that goal, ooh, the save percentage." I'm with you in the sense of I think it's very tough for a goalie to not face any rubber and then have a 6 foot whatever behemoth come in and fire a slap shot on you. Like, I think that's just a
Yep.
tough situation to be in. I don't think
Yep.
there's a conversation. It's Jordan Binnington's net. Is it story or no story? Binnington's crease.
Oh, make no mistake. That's a Tyler. It will be a story. They should be. I really don't. I think that like to the point that I made previous, games like that are really tough for netminder, for some netminders. Like I'll give you an example. So Nashville, okay. I remember Chris Mason told me this one. We were having a conversation about Pekka Rinne, and what Pekka Rinne liked as a goaltender was to feel the puck a lot. And when Barry Trotz was his coach, first period, there'd be like, and they weren't like high danger chances, but he would get like 10 to 15 shots in the first period because Trotz knew, like, let him feel the puck, guys. Like Matthias Ekholm, don't worry about like suppressing every single shot here. Like, don't worry about getting in front of everything. Rinne likes to feel the puck. Trotz gets fired. They bring in Peter Laviolette, and Peter Laviolette's whole thing is like shot suppression. Too many shots in the first. Our goalie can't face 15. He's got to face 5. And Rinne struggled. Like, there are just some goaltenders that need to feel the puck. I would make the argument that most goaltenders need to feel the puck early. I think that a game like this is actually in some ways more difficult to play for some goalies than other games, because you're not getting that volume of shot. Now, it's the elite that can stay focused through that. And for me, that's what made a goalie like Carey Price so magnificent. One, there was no one who was calmer in the net and after a game where you'd stick a microphone in his face and you couldn't tell whether the Montreal Canadiens, or in this case Team Canada, won the game or lost the game. He was just so even keel. And two, even in games where he's getting stellar defense, both from the defenders and from the forwards, and only facing barely double digits shots, and would still stay focused for the big ones that are coming in the third. That's what made Carey Price such a great goaltender. Some goalies can struggle with that. So if you're thinking, oh man, you can't have this against the United States, I would make the argument that it would actually be better for Binnington to play against the States because he'd feel more pucks, specifically early in the game. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Totally. Like, again, I call, and this is just a very niche thing, but like I've called Golden Bears games for a number of years in the Canada West level. And like every weekend for however many years, they go and outshoot the other team 48-12. And the chances that the goalie gives up, it's like, oh, a 2-on-1 because they were pressing too hard, or a breakaway that just sort of appears out of thin air. And again, that's why I have sympathy for Jordan Binnington on that one goal, which if you want to call it an ugly one, sure. But like, it's hard to read that kind of a play when you haven't been in the play for 10 minutes.
The slap shot, and he had been cold for how long? And the first one, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's Colton Parayko, and every Edmonton Oilers fan is saying that's why we were screaming for Evan Bouchard to be on this blue line for Team Canada. So to answer your question, I don't think it's a story, but it will be, because it's Canadian goaltending, and specifically it's Jordan Binnington. Much like Chris Osgood never got the respect that he deserved, backstopping the Detroit Red Wings to Stanley Cups, Jordan Binnington, no matter what Team Canada does, Canada will always be treated. He'll always be treated of Team Canada won in spite of having Jordan Binnington as their netminder, when really we see this guy in big game moments, whether it's Stanley Cup, whether it's Four Nations, there's 2 opportunities at it. This guy's been exceptional. He's been exceptional.
A plus 16 goal differential, and yes, you're right, we will always find ways to nitpick, and that Colton Parayko turnover had him trending for all the wrong reasons. Cale Makar had a couple that I'm sure he'd want back. Story or no story, Canada's blue line and their ability to move the puck?
Great question. I think that Parayko is guilty of not being a great puck mover. Like I've always said, like this back end is sort of living and dying on their first pair with Cale Makar and Devon Toews. I thought that Thomas Harley's had a good couple of games as well. Drew Doughty is not the youngest guy. I think that Shea Theodore is a great power play backup for Cale Makar. The one thing that John Cooper has this team doing, and we saw this in the game against Czechia. Like there's 2 things. Like as a defender, the basic philosophy is if puck goes in, puck goes out. If puck goes in, puck goes out. Like that's the basis. The one thing that Team Canada, like this entire group does, and I really saw it against Czechia, not so much in this game where Canada could move the puck easily and efficiently out of their zone, but under pressure, this team is able to flip the puck into really safe areas. And it got me to thinking of, as far as tactics and strategy goes, this is a really, really small neutral zone. So the idea of, and we saw Canada against Czechia lay some pretty big hits in the neutral zone, waiting for waiting for punt catches. Flipping the pucks in the neutral zone is probably a really smart tactic. And under pressure, this back end does it well. So to your point about like the traditional definition of moving the puck and making plays, and Eric Carlsoning, I made a word there, Eric Carlsoning the puck out of their own zone. This is a blue line that's not just shy about flipping it. And I think that this is like, if you remember those early days of Drew Doughty and Andrzej Kopitar playing together with the Los Angeles Kings. So Doughty and Kopitar had this thing worked out where Kopitar would like speed down the wing, and Doughty wouldn't like fire it at him like a snapshot, but would lob a pass to him in the air, and Kopitar would grab it, not break stride, and continue on. Like, if there's like a master at that on this blue line, it's probably Drew Doughty. Because anyone that's watched Los Angeles Kings games for the time that these two have been together, which is forever, you've seen this play plenty. And this is a team that's not shy about a little bit of pressure. Let's flip it. Let's flip it. Let's flip it. Let's flip it. And it's really hard for the other team to regroup when the neutral zone is so small and the Canadian forwards are so quick that they can be into the neutral zone either to receive a flip or break up the other team before they can get a regroup going and go back into the offensive zone.
Yeah, I think that's a really well-made point. I'm thinking, too, of just some scoring chances from these three games that have been a result of that. There was even that Nathan McKinnon goal that wasn't a goal. It was negated by a penalty in their opener where it was Jordan Binnington doing exactly that, right? And he lobbed that one all the way down the ice, and they pushed. Mark Stone almost had a great look today, again, off a very similar play. And actually that one goal where I thought maybe it was offside, but Stone pushed, and then bang, bang, it was in the back of the net. That started with a lob pass.
Was that the slowest breakaway you've seen in these games? Was that the slowest breakaway maybe you've seen this year? God bless Mark Stone, but speed is not his friend and never has been. His calling card has always been two-way play. He's going to go down as this generation's Marian Hossa, the great player to never win the Selke Trophy, because we only give the thing to centers. We never give it to wingers. But here's Mark Stone demonstrating he's one of the best two-way players. And in and around the net, we saw it again today against France. This guy's gold. And they were even laughing. Like, Stone was laughing about it. The guys on the bench were laughing about it when Mark Stone came back to the bench, and how many guys were saying, like, if you were going any slower, you would have been going backwards. God bless Mark Stone. He is elite at what he does. Speed is not. He will never be confused with 97 or Pavel Bure or any of the burners that we've seen in the NHL.
Since we're on the topic, I've really liked that third line. I was maybe a little bit hesitant on it coming into the tournament, but they were being great in every game. But with the lack of speed, do you think that's a third line that can still find success when we get into games against Team USA eventually, probably at some point, or even if you run into a Finland or a Sweden earlier on?
Yeah, you know what? I'm a big fan, and maybe the New York Islanders in the early '80s, late '70s were the masters of this. Although there were some Edmonton teams that had this dynamic too. I'm a big fan. I think this is really the only way that you can win with certain lines, of having lines where every single player does something that's completely distinct from the other. Like, when I look at lines that have too much skill overlap, and this is, like, I'll be honest, this is one of the criticisms of the Toronto Maple Leafs for years and years and years. They have a lot of elite players, but they all do the same thing. And sure, Marner and Matthews, together in the regular season, like, they look great, and that's fine. But then the playoffs start, and it really becomes pronounced that you need three distinct players doing three distinct things. And you look at the line you're talking about, you have the hardest working superstar in the middle in Connor McDavid. You have one of, if not the best two-way wingers in the game in Mark Stone. And then you have one of the most creative players in the game in Mitch Marner. Other than they're all elite, when you look at all three of those players, Tyler, do you say, like, they're more similar, or are they more different than one another? And it's pretty easy to look at these three and say, wow, these are three really distinct players. When I see lines like that, that's catnip, man. Like to me, that's Cat. That's like that is the recipe for success right there. That's why I don't really have much concern about that line because you've got three elite guys doing three different things. That's how you win.
Yeah, and I think again, like the usage when you get into those big games is going to be interesting as well. And to use like the baseball analogy of like, okay, you got Connor McDavid in that group, and it's such a fastball. Then you can throw the curveball by putting McKinnon up with them, which we saw a little bit
Totally.
today, but not as much as we saw against Switzerland. And yeah, if Crosby, Stone, and Marner are a change up, so to speak, with the change in speed and slowing things down, and they win D zone draws and they do all that, like again, I just don't think it's going to be a massive problem when you get into, again, what is a one game sample size, which is the other crazy thing is there's so much buildup right now of like, oh, are we going to get Canada USA in a gold medal game? And so much hype. We've waited a year for the rematch, all this. And it's one game.
Yeah.
It's not a 3-game series or a 7-game series. It's going to be one bounce, one decision, one play that's going to decide this thing.
It's going to be hockey, right? It's off the heel, it's
Yeah.
off the toe. Frozen rubber puck meets frozen ice, like, and bodies and skates and shin pads and flubbed passes and goalies losing pucks underneath center, like we saw Jeremy Swayman yesterday. You just hope that like that doesn't turn out to be the gold medal goal, but it might.
It very well
This
could.
is this is sort of, it's funny. I was having this conversation with Wyshynski last week about, when you look at the success of tournaments like this, that to me it really sort of underscores how the season is too long because there's so many meaningless games. And in a tournament like this, like every single shift, every period, every game has so much meaning attached to it. And his point was an interesting one. He said, your issue is not with the length of the season. Your issue is with the length of the playoffs. And is best out of 7 too much? The first couple of games, okay, we'll just see how it goes. If you got at it right away, now it's never gonna happen. But it just sort of underscores like if we want to make the a little more meaningful, the answer is to massage the playoffs, not the regular season. Even though I always argue the NHL needs to get their game out of June. Hey, I thought of you in the pregame show today. Can I tell you why?
I would love to know why.
So Cassie Campbell Pascal mentioned something about Connor McDavid and Jesse Puljujarvi, and how Connor McDavid, Wayne Gretzky would always say, offside is the most selfish play in the game. And Connor McDavid, as Cassie mentioned to us, the one thing that McDavid hates more than anything else is bad passes, and we all know about that with Jesse Puljujarvi. I just wanted to throw into the mix there was an absolute drill buster. And that's one of the reasons why the guys really didn't have a lot of time for Puljujarvi with the Edmonton Oilers. But just as a quick aside, do you have why that never worked between Puljujarvi and Connor McDavid? Because I thought of you earlier. I'm like, ooh, this is catnip for Tyler.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we were talking about a former Oiler on this show, my guess would have been Johan Ovitu, who people forget had a brief cup of coffee.
Yes, he did.
The Puljujarvi one. I mean, listen, there's a laundry list of reasons why Connor McDavid didn't like playing, or why I think Connor McDavid, I should say, didn't like playing with Jesse Puljujarvi. One more as we go through the storylines here. Story, non-story.
Sure.
I mean, hey, Tom Wilson having a Gordie Howe hat trick in the Olympics, that's going to live forever. Like, what a tidbit that'll be, 15, 20 years down the line. But story or non-story on the way Canada kind of lost their cool, because it wasn't just Wilson. Like, Nathan McKinnon, after he got hit, he was running around looking to do some damage. And I was sitting there going like, man, international hockey, if you catch a guy with an elbow up high here, like, you're not playing in the quarterfinals. I found it interesting the way Canada seemed to kind of snap, even though that was a blowout.
I think if you're John Cooper, you're happy that it happened now, right? Now that you can get the guy's attention. So you have Tom Wilson dropping his gloves with Pierre Crillon. You have Nathan McKinnon, and understandably, going a little banana sandwich there as well. Like, it's kind of a game where all you're essentially playing for is goal differential to make sure you distance yourself from the United States. And at that moment where coaches might say, yeah, we don't like it, want to play with more discipline, coaches are always looking for that moment where you can capture a team's attention. And now John Cooper can walk into that room with some authority and say, I hope you guys enjoyed that, because now that's over. Like, if they just cruise through that game and none of Crillon and Wilson happened, or Nathan McKinnon goes a little snappy, like, Cooper can't say anything.
Yeah.
But now he's got a bullet that he can play. It's like, I hope you guys got it out of your system. But having said that, I think that he still likes the way that the team is playing aggressively. But now I think this is the time where you remind them, listen, if this thing lines up the way we think it's all going to line up, we're going to play against the Kachucks, right? That's what John Cooper would say. That's the time for discipline. Tom, you want to go at Crino? Okay, fine. That's fine. But we're going to play against the Kachucks. And outside of, if we're running up the score in the gold medal game, outside of you maybe challenging the bench John Wensing style to try to really show up the Americans, let's just leave that in our hip pocket. What do you think?
I think that's a good point of like, did you get it out of your system? Because that, and you said the Kachucks, like that was the first thing that popped into my head when I was watching that was, oh my God, if a defenseman on France is getting under your skin this easily, then what is going to happen in the gold medal game when the pressure is even elevated a little bit more? And like for me with Wilson, again, that wasn't like he stepped onto the ice, looked at Cronin, went, let's go, let's drop the gloves. Like, he laid the big hit. They snapped. There was the moment after where he there was a shot of Wilson where he almost looked like he grabbed a linesman and was trying to pull away to like get back at him. Like that wasn't a
70s fight. It was a 70s fight. That moment.
It wasn't I'm standing up for my teammate here and sending a message. It was like a total loss of composure. But to your point, does that allow Cooper to maybe grab the attention of the room and say like, all right, boys, you got it out of your system. You all now know not to go that far again.
Elliot just reported a couple of seconds ago there will be no further discipline for Tom Wilson or Pierre Crino. So there you go. Nothing for either of them. So,
so I guess
there you go.
No harm, no foul.
I think it. I guess so. It just carried the automatic game for that, the 2-5 in the game, and then it's play on Tom Wilson available to ride shotgun with. I thought it was interesting watching Tom Wilson talk to Edouard Bellemare at the break, just to sort of remind him, hey, let's not get stupid about this. And then, what, a shift later, Tom Wilson's going after Pierre Crino. Although Crino looked like he wanted it more than Tom Wilson did, figuring that Tom Wilson doesn't play in Grenoble. I'm never going to see this guy again. I got one shot to do this. Maybe I'll take it right now. He's not gonna come chase me around France.
I just to kind of put a bow on this game, like I think we've kind of hit on everything. They didn't really do the big load up all that often because they didn't have to. I thought maybe at some points they were passing up a few opportunities early, but again, 10-2 final. I'm not going to nitpick this game, but they were maybe early on, and it's been a thing. Like each of their first periods now in this tournament, I've come out of there going, okay, well they're winning or they're up by a few goals, so I don't want to critique it, but they kind of they walked into a few of these games. There hasn't been like a big hot start where they dominate the first 6-7 minutes or anything like that.
You know what spoiled us, Tyler? You know what spoiled us? That 2010 Canada-Russia game where, Nabokov got chased early. Canada came out just like house on fire, and every single shift just pouring it on the Russians. Nabokov got pulled. Brizgalov came. I remember after the game, Brizgalov, in one of his great quotes of all time, said, "They came at us like gorillas released from a cage," which is an image that I've always laughed at. It's Brizgalov, but I think that one spoiled us because I think that was the most aggressive period of hockey I've ever seen maybe any Team Canada play. And I think everyone's like, yes, that's Team Canada. That's what we want. But I understand the sort of feeling out process that does go on. Having said that, I mean, the puck was in France's zone, the entire period, the entire game. To your previous point, which I think is right, they got a little bit cute a few times. They wanted to put makeup on the puck a little bit and make it look nice before it went over the line. Part of that is just I know you want to make it pretty for the highlights, but you're right. There are a few times, around the net where it's you know what, just blast it. You don't got to keep going high, low, high, low, high, low to make it look perfect. Sometimes the right answer is just to shoot the shot. But to your point, we're nitpicking a 10-2 victory here.
Make it pretty for the highlights. The highlights, of course, that the IOC will block in most nations, so no one would see the goals anyways. That'd be my message. Hey, guys, no one's watching replays anyways. Just put the damn puck in the net. It's a box score tournament.
Yeah, no, I know. You know what though? It's because for the longest time too, and even now to this day, like you'll still have, owners grousing about shutting down the season, allowing our athletes to go play there for no financial benefit for us, and what are we getting out of it? And like here we are in this era where look at the shots, 46-14. Oh man, look at that. Some of the this is the definition of a tilted rink. Um, I can't help but thinking. I'm not sure. Have you seen the Netflix documentary on the 1980 team? Have you had a
No, I
chance to
haven't
have a
watched it
peek
yet,
at that one?
actually.
Okay, it's fantastic. Like I encourage everyone watching and listening to have a peek at it. Just when you think, yeah, because I thought that I had read everything and watched everything about 1980 and have a real grip on all of it. And whenever you get that arrogant, like I have, you watch something like that and you go like, okay, well, you know what? I hadn't considered it from that perspective, and I didn't know this, and I didn't like, and it's really good. But I can't help but thinking like we have such a short-term outlook on hockey. It's almost like, the corporation that just goes quarter to quarter to quarter to quarter and doesn't have a long-term vision. But like the whole time, whenever I hear owners say like, "There's nothing for us in this game," I always say to myself, the issue is not that you're not getting an immediate return on your investment by allowing your players to go. The issue is, just to be blunt, the United States hasn't won any of these things.
Hmm.
Like you look of all the great players that came on into the NHL who picked up a hockey stick because of 1980 and what that did. Like I assure you, guys, Chelios and Roenick and like that whole Joey Mullen, like that generation of player, they didn't pick up a hockey stick because they saw it on ABC. They picked up hockey sticks because it was a cool thing because of 1980. Like the effects of that weren't immediate, they were long term, but it was a long term investment. Like here we are celebrating Patrick Kane, the greatest, U.S. born skater in the history of the NHL points wise, and not thinking that if 1980 doesn't happen, does Patrick Kane pick up a stick? Because Kane to 1980 to the Chelios group to the Kane group in Buffalo, I assure you it wasn't because he was watching national games on ABC. It was because of 1980. So much of even U.S. exposure right now tracks back to 1980. That's why I always laugh and say, "Oh, there's nothing in it for us." Yes, there is. It's just going to take some time. And if you just want to get paid on every single rung of the ladder, then shame on you, because having NHLers at the Olympic is an investment in the future of your sport. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what to say to you. You pick up on
Yeah.
that one? You with me on that one? Like this is an investment in your game, in your players, in your country for the future.
Yeah, I mean, think about and again, this is taking it in a bit of a different way, but like, the Vince Carter effect in Canada and the way a
Big
generation of
time.
basketball players, Vince Carter leaves Toronto, gets booed, he's public enemy number one, and then 15 years later, we're pointing to him and his presence going, "Oh, that's the reason why the Canadian basketball national team is on the level that it is." Like, we're going to get probably a similar effect coming out of this, where there'll be kids who watched Four Nations last year, and maybe at first
Totally.
they're enamored by the fights and all of that stuff, but they fall in love with the sport as a result of it.
Yeah, 100%. Can I do some of these stories? You got a couple of these notes here.
Yep.
Okay. So, a couple of things to know because he did play a couple of years in North America. Pierre Crinon, who got in the fight with Tom
Yep.
Wilson, and if you missed it earlier, no supplemental for either of them. One quote: "I just saw it. Thank God for him. It ended quick." And the other, oh, here's one from an ex-player. "Was Pierre drunk? He was scared of his own shadow. He knows Wilson is never playing in France." But here's the other one. There was another story about when he played junior hockey in North America. He lost his mind at practice, took a clap bomb at somebody after a normal drill, got stopped, and then skated off the ice. Psycho move. Pierre Quinon. That's what I have for you from throwing out a couple of texts quickly about what can you tell us from his time playing junior hockey in
Junior
North
hockey
America.
overseas.
He played in the USHL and the NA.
You gotta be a little crazy, I think, to drop the mitts with Tom Wilson. Let's
Yeah.
take a look ahead now for this tournament and for Canada. Just a couple of things here as I'm watching them
Yep.
come in. Ryan Rashog reporting. John Cooper says Brad Marchand will play in the quarterfinal for Canada.
Good.
I'm curious if, or who I should say, ends up coming out for that decision. Will it just be a simple Marchand for Jarvis swap again, or
I
I
think
haven't
so.
minded
I,
Jarvis?
I think listen. I would have had. I'm totally biased here. I will admit because I love Seth Jarvis. He's one of my favorite players. He's a versatile player. The way he uses his speed to force defenders to make decisions is great. Great penalty killer. And if/when Canada plays against the United States, that will be really valuable. But I do think that that's probably going to be the swap. I love Seth Jarvis. I'd have him on any team, including this one. But if you ask me what Cooper's move is going to be, it's probably going to be the easy swap
And then the other
between the
one that
two.
I'm sure we won't get an answer on for a while here. Don't think Cooper talked about it in his post game. I'm curious about Josh Morrissey if he's going to be available and ready to go.
Skated. I
Yeah.
mean, he skated this morning, so that's good news. But even now, like even though it's only been 3 games, to just airdrop someone into an environment now where it's going to be up an even higher of a level,
hmm
even that's a risky move at this point. Even with someone as elite as Josh Morrissey, coming off the quote unquote the injury. So I don't want to say never, but it would be first of all glad that he's skating for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really happy about here for Josh Morrissey. I don't know that I don't know, even though he's amongst the elite in the NHL, one of the best defenders on Canada. I don't know that airdropping him in, even after these 3 games and the level that this tournament's already got to, would be the sanest move. But again, we'll see how it goes.
I think having this, like, if you could only dress 6, I'd be with you. Having the option of a 7th defenseman, and I'd also maybe even
Yeah.
play it by ear. Not that you want to take anyone lightly in a quarterfinal because crazy things can always happen. If you're playing a team that you really like your chances against in a quarterfinal, do you sit there and say, okay, Josh, we're going to put you in as the 7th defenseman. We can let you kind of wade into things, or is that just too much risk?
I think that's too much risk, and it's your coach to mitigate risk, right? Like that's
Mhm.
part of what you do. Is it's so tempting because he's so good.
I know.
And like any other player, he's going to lie to you about whether he can play or not, or how good he is to go, right? Like it was like last year at the Four Nations with Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah, I'm good to go, coach. Yeah, scratch Kyle Connor. Yeah, I'm good to go. And next thing you know, like he's sitting on the bench, and USA can't score a goal to save their lives. Yeah, I don't know. That's again, like I assume that players in this situation always lie about being good to go, and as a head coach, it's your job to mitigate that risk. I don't know. That's a decision for someone much smarter than me, and thankfully for Canada, John Cooper is much smarter than me.
Um, Looking at sort of the rest of the tournament here, because again, Canada is going to clear through, get a bye past the qualifying round. They'll play in
Yep.
the quarterfinals on Wednesday. I said coming into this, and when I was on the sheet 6 days ago now on Monday, I said like everyone just kind of sat there and was, or not everyone, a lot of people going, okay, Canada, Sweden, USA will win their groups and we'll go from there. And it was like, at these tournaments, there's always a wrinkle. Someone always loses a game that you don't think they're going to lose, and all of that. And we got our wrinkle in Sweden, finishing much lower in their group than they
Yeah.
thought they would. Slovakia played a great game. They pull off a big upset. Looking at
Did
this
they? Did they?
qualifying,
Did they? They lost.
well, yeah,
They lost the game,
not
but they
overall.
won.
Sorry, I meant Slovakia earlier in the tournament pulled off the upset.
Oh,
with
okay.
Finland,
Sorry,
and then
sorry.
Finland
Okay,
beating
yeah.
Sweden. Like there was a
'Cause
domino effect from that first Slovakia
yes,
game that threw us off.
100%. But that was like I think we're all on the same page about this. That's one of the weirdest games we've ever seen,
hmm
wasn't it? And it's certainly one of the weirdest post games that we've ever seen, where Sweden wins and no one's showing their upper teeth. Meanwhile, Slovakia is like celebrating like they just popped the cork out of a champagne bottle. And rightfully so. It's just obviously the nature of this tournament, and it's probably going to be something that Lucas Raymond's not. It's going to take a while to live down here, unless Sweden can completely turn things around, and they have the skill to do it. As we know, like when you just look like skill on skill, like they're amongst the elite. I know we don't love them down the middle, but like they're amongst the elite. in this tournament. If there's one team that can turn the momentum around, maybe it is Sweden. But Tyler, if Sweden flames out here, it's going to be a long flight home for Lucas Raymond, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might be a long flight home for Philip Gustafsson as well. Like we sit here, and I know
Yeah.
again people like to point fingers at Canada's goaltending, not good enough, not good enough, and we look at other countries and go, "Whoa, that Sweden's got 3 guys that are so good," and it's like you can have 10 guys that are so good, and if you start the wrong one or the one guy has an off day, goaltending can still cost you the tournament, no matter how many good ones you have on your roster.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm still like I always my second favorite. I don't know. Do you ever do this? Like you have like the team that you cheer for. Like NHL, I don't cheer for anybody. I cheer for players. But international hockey, listen, I'm Canadian, and that's my default team. Obviously, I cheer for Canada. But my second favorite team at all these tournaments is always Sweden. At times, maybe sometimes it's been Latvia because I love the fans and like how plucky and hardworking they are. But I always cheer for Sweden. That probably goes back to like Canada Cup '76 with me because I'm old. But I still hold out hope for Sweden. Like that is the Sweden stole my torch song. Like, come on, Sweden, you can do this. You're better than this. Like, how many times have you come away from an international tournament and said, Sweden, you're better than this. We all know you're
Yeah.
better than this. Pull this together, man. But we'll see.
Well, to go on a run here, like they're gonna likely run into the Americans a lot earlier than expected. And for a team like USA, like part of the value I think in getting that 1 seed again for Canada is that you might avoid a tougher quarterfinal
Bingo.
matchup. But Canada rolls through their 3, and I'm curious if you give any thought to this or if you think this is a story at all. But Canada rolls through their 3 games. USA is gonna go through their 3 without having really much of a test unless Germany really scares them. I know the game yesterday was close for a while and Denmark had a lead. That was all fun and games for a while.
Yeah, it was
But
fun.
do you read anything into like no adversity? Like in 2010, Canada
Yes.
faced adversity. Even 2014,
Yes.
they got pushed to overtime by Finland in the
Yes.
preliminary round. Like, do you take anything into that? Like USA and Canada have kind of, to an extent, kicked their feet up in the preliminary round.
Czechia was the test, and
Yeah,
Canada got it early. With all due respect to France, Switzerland, like Czechia was the test. Czechia was the test for Canada. The team that I would be concerned about, again, I'm mentioning this to Pete Blackburn on our preview show, and Pete's like, yeah, no, this is not a bonus. I looked at Pool C and said, like, this is a curse, not a blessing for USA. Like breezing through your first 3 games is not a blessing whatsoever because you can, as we've seen before, you can fool yourself into thinking that what is working against these teams in Group C are going to work against some of the bigger dogs, Sweden, Canada, go right down the list, and it's the Mike Tyson line, right? Everyone's got a plan to get punched in the mouth. Well, Canada, USA faces off against Sweden. They're about to get punched in the mouth. The team that technically won against Slovakia and played a better game and can still hit a stride that we haven't seen them hit yet so far this tournament, that could be the punch in the mouth moment. Now, I still don't think that it will be. USA is just too good, but I don't think that having a group where you breeze through it is a blessing at all. I think you need to get pushed. Canada's test was Czechia. I think that there's enough time between now and Wednesday for John Cooper to readjust how Canada thinks. Although, what's funny, Tyler? I was thinking about this a lot. Like, okay, so what happens now for Canada? Like, you got a couple of days off. You've just run the table through your pool here. If you're John Cooper, are you concerned about overconfidence? And then I remembered like who's on this team, and Crosby and McDavid and McKinnon. Like these are not guys that fool themselves about who they are. Like you've seen players in teams that fool themselves about who they are and think that there's something they're not. Usually those are the ones that fall flat on their face in the playoffs in the NHL. I don't think for 1 second any of these guys are lying to themselves about who they are. That's why I don't have that overconfidence concern about Canada. I think that this is a team that even if they're down a puck going into the third period or even two, there's probably not going to be any panic, And that's just the wisdom of experience measured with, the exuberance of a guy that we talked about off the top who may end up being the big star out of all of this in Macklin Celebrini. So on the one hand, I would look at it and say, yeah, Canada had a test, but really how much of a test was Czechia? But then I remember myself, like, they're not going to fool themselves about who they are and who they aren't. There's too many wise hockey players on this team for Canada to get caught up in that nonsense.
I agree, and I think part of it, and I talked about this with Dan Riccio on our post-game show on Friday. This group, and this stands for USA, not just Canada, but they were together a year ago, right? It's not like these are guys who haven't played together as a team in 4 years since the last Olympics or whatever. Like you could argue that Canada faced some adversity as a group last year, trailing in the final game, losing to the USA in the round robin at the Four Nations, and you could argue that USA's faced some adversity now too, losing that gold medal or that Four Nations final, whatever we call it, on home ice. Like maybe that was part of the strategy of let's bring back a very similar group, is that there is some shared experience there between them.
And then I feel that way until Canada loses, and then we just tear apart the roster selection. And then it turns into, how come this guy wouldn't know? How come this guy wasn't there? How come no Chikrin? How come no Bouchard? What Matthew Schaefer? Connor Bedard? Like, just the nature of how it goes. But I think that there is wisdom, obviously, in having guys. It's almost like, and I keep going back to one thing specifically here. It's almost like that was a sort of focus test for the Olympics for probably both Canada and the United States. Like the Four Nations is fun. It's a little all-star replacement and sort of chumming of the waters for the Olympics, but let's see what works. And the one thing that we saw that really, really worked that we haven't seen Team Canada go to yet, and they probably have in their hip pocket, as there's going to be games where John Cooper has to make more adjustments. Bennett and Marner together were really good. Sam Bennett and Mitch Marner, for whatever reason, really, really worked. And we haven't seen that yet. But you know that John Cooper has that in his hip pocket, amongst other things that probably aren't as obvious to you, me, and everybody in the chat and everybody listening and watching. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Again, for Canada, it's a couple of off days. The quarterfinals will pick up on Wednesday. The qualifying round on Tuesday with a full slate of 4 games. Tomorrow is a quiet day on the men's side of the tournament, but not on the women's side of the tournament. Jeff, we're going to get some semifinal action from Milana Cortina and Canada looking to punch their ticket to a gold medal game. They beat Germany in the quarters.
It looked good to see Marie-Philippe Poulin back out there, and now ties Haley Wickenheiser 18 goals, the most ever in the Olympics for any athlete. So that's good. But the big challenge for Canada is not only going to be, and again, you don't want to look too much ahead, but let's look ahead here. The big challenge for Canada is going to be park what happened against the United States. And it's tough because they're just so fast, they're just so good, they're just so crisp, and you can feel like there's a sort of passing of the torch internationally. That's not just happening at this tournament, but we saw it last year at the World Championships, and we saw it during the games this year between the two. If you're Canada, you need to park that game and realize that a lot of what you did are correctable mistakes, but not let Abby Murphy live in your head too much. But make no mistake about it. If you're a Canadian hockey fan, if you don't know the name Abby Murphy yet, you're going to learn the name Abby Murphy, because she's going to be a problem for Canada for the next 15 years. And she's going to be a star in the PWHL for whoever's drafting first overall this year.
I was going to say, that's the crazy thing too. Awesome. She hasn't even played in the professional league yet. She's still in Minnesota. All right, Jeff, I cannot believe how quickly an hour flies by with you. That was tremendous stuff. Appreciate you
Fun stuff.
hopping on. You back with the sheet tomorrow?
Back on the sheet tomorrow. So look forward to that one. It'll be a full sort of like review and preview, like we're all doing right now, try to make it as interesting as possible. And it's always a challenge too, because things are changing so quick at this tournament. But there'll be a lot on Team Canada, a lot on Team USA, and all the things that you would expect. We should probably park some time on the show tomorrow too to talk about, I can't help but thinking whenever they do the cutaways, like, do you think this too? When they do the cutaways to the GM box and you see like, oh, look, there's Doug Armstrong talking to Kyle Dubas and blah, blah. Like, you're not thinking like, yeah, we're focused here on this tournament, but hey, let's go have a drink and talk about the Blues and the Penguins. So anyway, do some NHL talk on the show tomorrow too.
Yeah, I was curious when maybe a few things like that would start popping up, and maybe tomorrow, with it being a quiet day in Milan Cortina, maybe that's when it happens. Jeff, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks for popping on.
Yeah, Kyle Dubas saying to Armstrong, we're looking for another defender here too if you want to do something with that Parayko fella. All right, Tyler, you be good. Always good being on with you, pal.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. All right, Jeff Marek from The Sheet, Monday through Friday, right here on the Daily Face-Off YouTube. A couple of things just to clear up. First off, if you ever had any doubt for a second that the Canada-USA rivalry wouldn't survive or keep going for you, the chat is a great example of that rivalry still being alive and well. I think a lot of Canadians in here even putting in some Germany flags ahead of USA's game against Germany, which of course is coming in just over an hour. Denmark up 3-1 on Latvia right now as they close out their preliminary round. And just a couple of notes, things that I found interesting as we went through the show. James Duthie with an interesting tweet. Sid had 7 points in Vancouver, 3 in Sochi. He has, I should say, 6 already here in Milan. So Sidney Crosby's production, even though this is his third Olympics, 16 years since his first one, his production is the best it's ever been. And the tournament point leader, this is scoring up in general, but the points leader of the 2014 Olympics in Sochi, which was, again, like a down year, a lot of low-scoring games, whatever, it was Phil Kessel. He led that tournament with 8 points in 6 games. Connor McDavid already at 9 with 3 3-point performances throughout the tournament. Sidney Crosby also becoming the the leader in NHL Olympics for scoring. I know that's kind of like worded a little bit funky, but in Olympics where NHLers have participated, Sidney Crosby is Canada's all-time leader in points. It was Chris Johnson who passed that along. He tied Jarome Iginla at 14 points, again, spread across his now third Olympics in a Maple Leaf. Macklin Celebrini, he's Canada's goal-scoring leader with 4. Connor McDavid, again, 2 away from tying the record for the most points in an Olympics with NHLers. That was set back in 2006. A pair of Finns, Saku Koivu and Teemu Selanne, were the 2 who did all of that scoring. But, I mean, that's the level Connor McDavid's at. I know the poll was close on if Macklin Celebrini was Canada's best player. It's Connor McDavid. Again, the fact Celebrini is in the conversation is remarkable and just such a high compliment to him as a player. But like, how good has Connor McDavid been? We're all sitting here being like, oh yeah, he's going to set the all-time record for points in an Olympics by an NHLer. Like he's just going to do it. He'll probably do it in the next game. It might take him till the semis, but he won't even need that gold medal game to set the record. It's crazy. It's crazy to see the level that these guys are at. In Canada, a perfect 3-0 through the preliminary round here, or out, I should say, at the Winter Games in Milano Cortina. Once again, a big thank you to our friends at Bet365, presenting sponsor of the show. Whatever the moment, whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. No odds up right now for the men's side of things, but Canada plus 210 underdogs to win the women's side and take home gold. USA favored at minus 275. Sweden, Switzerland, the other 2 semifinalists. Again, those games will go tomorrow. A quiet day on the men's side, and then we're back at it on Tuesday with the qualifying round games. Jeff will be live tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern with The Sheet. I will be live at noon Eastern with my good friend, former NHLer Carter Hutton. We're going to break down the end of the preliminary round and take a look ahead with our guy Steve Peters from ESPN and Inside the Coaches Room. Everybody in the YouTube, if you're new, full slate of shows. Morning Cup of Hockey's live tomorrow as well with Colby Cohen and Johnny Lazarus. They'll have everything covered from a U.S. perspective and give their thoughts on the tournament as a whole as well. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody, and I will see you back here tomorrow. But again, keep it subscribed, keep it locked on Daily Face-Off for all the coverage you need throughout these Milano Cortina games. But again, enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Face-Off YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Face-Off Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.